Hello students, welcome to another session of the cardiovascular physiology, and now in this lecture we will see about the cardiac output and venous return. Now, what do you mean by cardiac output? Cardiac output is the amount of the blood pumped by each ventricle per minute. The value of the cardiac output is 5 liters. And what do you mean by venous return? It is the amount of the blood returning to the heart per minute, that is called as the venous return. In a physiological situation, the cardiac output should be equal to the venous return. If at all it is not equal, it is rapidly adjusted by the body so that there is no congestion of the blood in the heart. The cardiac output will be a multiplication of stroke volume into heart rate. What do you mean by stroke volume? The amount of blood ejected by ventricle per stroke, that is stroke volume. Now, normal stroke volume is about 70 ml, and if we take the heart rate is equal to 72 ml, then the cardiac output will be around 5 liters per minute. So that's how the cardiac output is being calculated. Now, you should also know about the concept of cardiac index. What is cardiac index? It is the cardiac output upon the body surface area. Now, if in a 70 kg persons, let's say that if the body surface area is 1.7 meters square, then 5 divided by 1.7, that will be equal to 3.2 liters per meter square. So this is the normal value for the cardiac index. Now we will see about the measurement of the cardiac output. How the cardiac output can be measured. Cardiac output is measured by the Fick's principle. As you can see in this slide, what is the equation or what is the formula for the Fick's principle? Q, that is the amount of substance taken up by any organ, will be equal to the difference between the arterial and value of that substance multiplied by the flow. So if we know this equation, we can calculate the flow. Flow will be equal to the amount of substance taken up by given out of any organ upon A minus V, that is the difference of arterial and the venous concentration. So we can use this Fick's principle to calculate the cardiac output. How? Suppose we can calculate the amount of oxygen that has been taken up by the lung, and the flow of the lung, that will be equal to the cardiac output. So cardiac output of the right ventricle, which will be equal to that of the left ventricle. So if I calculate the amount of oxygen taken up by the lung, and then if I do these calculations, how I can calculate the amount of oxygen taken up by the lung? By the spirometry. So what will be my equation? Cardiac output, that means the flow now will replace with the cardiac output because it is the pulmonary blood flow. Cardiac output will be O2 absorbed by the lung per minute upon pulmonary vein O2. That means the oxygen concentration, we can take it as in the arterial blood, minus pulmonary artery O2. That means the oxygen concentration of the venous blood. So now here how to calculate the pulmonary vein O2 and the pulmonary artery O2? To calculate the pulmonary vein O2, we can take the sample from the artery and then we can calculate the arterial concentration, that is arterial O2 concentration. But to calculate the pulmonary artery O2, we have to insert the catheter to the vein, and then we have to go to the right atrium. From the right atrium we can go to the right ventricle, and from the pulmonary trunk we have to calculate about the pulmonary artery O2. So what we can get it as, suppose 250 ml is the oxygen absorbed by the lung per minute, and pulmonary vein concentration is 19 ml and the pulmonary artery concentration is 14 ml, then what the formula we have is 25,000 divided by 5. So that will be equal to 5,000 ml per minute. But as you can see that this is an invasive method. We have to insert the catheter and we have to reach it up till the pulmonary trunk. So to overcome that, we measure the cardiac output by a non-invasive method or indirect Fick's principle. What we do in that? In this, we calculate the amount of CO2 evolved by the lung, and then CO2 output per minute multiplied by 100 divided by pulmonary artery CO2 minus pulmonary vein CO2. Now the question is how to calculate the pulmonary artery CO2 and how to calculate the pulmonary vein CO2. Now if I want to calculate the pulmonary vein CO2, that will be equal to the alveolar air CO2 level, because if you remember, whenever this is, suppose this is the alveolar and this is the blood vessel capillary which is passing from that. Now this is the pulmonary artery which is carrying the deoxygenated blood, and now when it reaches to the alveoli, carbon dioxide will be evolved up to a point where there is a equal, the partial pressure of the carbon dioxide will become equal between the, because of the diffusion. So if I take a alveolar sample and if I measure the percentage of CO2 in this alveolar air, that will be equal to that of my pulmonary vein CO2. But then how to calculate the pulmonary artery CO2? I have to ask the person to rebreathe in a paper bag. Continuous rebreathing in a paper bag will cause what? Will cause accumulation of the carbon dioxide. And now this carbon dioxide will accumulate and the alveolar air carbon dioxide level will go on increasing. It will increase to what level? It will match with that of the pulmonary artery CO2. So now if I take that alveolar air sample, I will get the value of the pulmonary artery CO2. So this becomes a non-invasive method, and this is the indirect Fick's principle by which we can calculate the cardiac output. There are some other methods also, dye dilution method, thermodilution method, echocardiography, by which we can calculate the cardiac output. Now we will see about some of the physiological and pathological conditions in which the cardiac output varies. Physiological causes first. In children and female, they have got more cardiac index. It is because of the less body surface area. So the cardiac index will be more in those. Diurnal variation. In early morning, the cardiac output will be less. Cardiac output will increase in anxiety, it will increase in excitement. It is because of the more sympathetic stimulation. It will increase after meals, more blood supply is given to the GI tract. It will increase in exercise. In pregnancy, it is increased because the blood volume it has increased. It will increase in high altitude because of the hypoxia, and that is again going to stimulate the heart, which is going to cause the increase in the heart rate, and ultimately the cardiac output will increase. Cardiac output decreases by 20 to 30% with sudden change in posture from lying down to sitting or standing. Now if the person is lying down, the effect of gravity is not there. But when the person suddenly stands, now because of the gravity, the blood is pulled towards the leg. Because of that, the venous return will decrease. A decrease in the venous return will decrease the cardiac output. Now the body, the baroreceptor reflex mechanism will adjust. It will cause the blood pressure to regulate and cardiac output will come back to normal after few minutes. Pathological causes of variation in the cardiac output. Cardiac output is increase in fever. Fever, increase in the body temperature will increase the SA node, increase the stimulation over the SA node, or it will cause the excitement of the SA node, and because of that the heart rate is going to be increased. The cardiac output will increase in anemia. In anemia, what has happened? The anemia, first thing, because of the less oxygen concentration, it is going to stimulate the heart and to increase the heart rate. Not only that, but in anemia the viscosity of the blood has decreased. So decrease in the viscosity will cause more rapid flow of the blood. So the venous return is going to be increased. If there is an increase in venous return, the cardiac output will increase because of that. In hyperthyroidism, thyroid hormones, they are going to stimulate the heart, and because of that there is more metabolism, more action of the SA node, and because of that there is the heart rate and the force of contraction is going to increase and the cardiac output will increase. Cardiac output will decrease in rapid arrhythmias. Now, if the heart rate, if it is increased to an extent, it will increase the cardiac output, because cardiac output is what? Cardiac output is stroke volume multiplied by heart rate. But if there is excess increase in the heart rate, rapid arrhythmias as we can call it as, more than let's say about 250 or 300, then that excess increase in the heart rate in fact will decrease the cardiac output. Why this will happen? Because if the heart rate is 250 or 300, then the diastolic time, It is more at the cost of the diastole. The diastolic time is very less. And what is the function of the diastole? The function of the diastole is to cause filling of the heart. So if there is no filling of the heart, whatever the subsequent contractions are there is no effective pumping in that. So ultimately, if the heart rate is very excessively increased, in that case, it is of not any use to increase the cardiac output. In fact, the cardiac output can decrease in such cases because of the ineffective filling of the heart. In congestive cardiac failure, the pumping ability of the heart that will decrease, more and more accumulation of the blood in the heart. Because of that, there is more stretching of the cardiac muscles. Further stretching again causes weakness of the cardiac muscle and further inability to pump the blood. In cardiac shock, the cardiac output that will decrease because it can either result because of the tumor or it can result because of the myocardial infarction, any tumor present in the cardiac muscle fiber. And in incomplete heart block, the action potential is not rapidly spreading, and because of that, some action potentials from the SA node, they don't reach up till the ventricle. Because of that, the heart rate will decrease, not the heart rate will decrease, but the ventricular rate will decrease, and because of that, the cardiac output again is going to be decreased. In case of hemorrhage also, the cardiac output will decrease. It is because of the decrease in the venous return, and because of that, the cardiac output will decrease. In hypothyroidism, which decreases the metabolic activity of the heart, will decrease the heart rate and will decrease the force of contraction. Therefore, the cardiac output will decrease. Regulation of cardiac output. How the cardiac output is regulated. As I have told you, cardiac output is what? Cardiac output is multiplication of stroke volume into heart rate. So, any factor which affects the stroke volume or heart rate or both are going to affect the cardiac output. So, what are the factors which can change the stroke volume? Regulation of stroke volume can be conveniently divided into two: homometric regulation and the heterometric regulation. Now, what this name suggests? Homometric means what? When the length of the cardiac muscle fiber is constant. That means if some drugs are acting on it, or if there is a neural stimulation which is going to cause the change in the force of contraction of the heart, in that case we will call it as the homometric regulation. Heterometric regulation, it is because of the change in the initial length of the muscle. When this can happen? This can happen if there is an increase in venous return. So any factor which will increase the venous return or decrease the venous return will change the initial length. If there is an increase in venous return, the initial length will be increased because the end diastolic volume is increased. And in that case, because of the Frank-Starling's law now, because the force of contraction will increase. Can you recall what is Frank-Starling's law? Frank-Starling's law states that within physiological limit, if there is an increase in the initial length, force of muscle contraction also increases. This becomes very important when it can in the case of heart. Initial length can also be increased if there is change in the peripheral resistance. Now, who offer peripheral resistance? Arterioles, and mainly the muscular arteries. If the peripheral resistance is increased because of the vasoconstriction, what will happen because of that? The heart will have more difficulty for pumping. It will face more resistance. If it has more difficulty for pumping, more blood will accumulate in the heart. The stroke volume for that bit will decrease. But when there is a more accumulation of the blood in the heart, the initial length is going to be increased, and now whatever the next contraction, that will be more powerful to increase the stroke volume, and ultimately it is going to cause the increase in the cardiac output, right? So first we will see what are the factors which are going to affect the end diastolic volume, and ultimately they are going to change the initial length. So what are the factors and even these are the ones which are mainly going to affect the venous return. Respiratory pump. Now, how the respiration can change the venous return? If you recall the mechanics of respiration, if for the inspiration, what a person has to do? There is three types of the movement: the bucket handle movement, the pump handle movement, and the diaphragm will constrict. Because of this, what will happen? There is an increase in the transverse diameter, increase in the anteroposterior diameter, and increase in the vertical diameter. Because of that, what has happened? The volume of the thorax, it has increased. And now, since the thorax is a closed cavity, so what will happen? a negative pressure. That is means the negative pressure is generated in the thorax. This will cause dilation of all the viscera present in the thorax, including the lungs, and which also include the heart. So whenever I inspire, during inspiration not only my lungs will expand, but there will be some expansion of the atria also. This expansion of the atria will cause a suction effect, and it will suck the blood from the venous system. That is the respiratory suction pump. Not only that, but at the time of expiration, now opposite happens. Whenever the person expires, now because of the collapse of the rib, we can say that the ribs will come back to the original position, recoil of that them will occur, and because of that the positive pressure will be generated, and this positive pressure will try to compress the viscera. Because of that it is helpful for the more amount of the stroke volume. So this is about the respiratory pump. Cardiac pump, how it is going to affect the venous return, or how it is going to increase the end diastolic volume. Cardiac pump we can divide into visce turgo and visce fronto. Now what do you mean by visce turgo? It is the forward push from behind. That means if the ventricle is contracting, it is pushing the blood. The Windkessel effect of the aorta, if it is the elastic aorta, so whenever it is contracting, it is pushing the blood forward. So this is called as visce turgo. Whenever it pushes forward, the venous return ultimately it is going to be increased. What do you mean by visce fronto? That means suction from the front. How the heart can suck the blood? Now, whenever the opening of the AV walls are there, so at the end of the isovolumetric relaxation phase, suddenly AV walls will open and blood from atria will go into the ventricle. And now what has happened in the atria? A suction effect has been created. So because of that, the suction will take place. Not only that, this can be called as the diastolic suction. Not only that, but there is also ventricular suction. What happens during the ventricular systole suction? What happens during the systole? As soon as the ventricle starts contracting, the AV walls will close, and now the blood will be ejected out into the aorta or pulmonary trunk. When the blood is going into the aorta or pulmonary trunk, now the AV walls will fall back, and because of that the atrial volume will increase, and this is again going to increase the suction effect, right? Another factor which increases the venous return is the muscle pump. Now you might have studied the most important way by which the blood will flow into the veins is because of the muscle. The pinnae of the deep veins, they will be lying within the muscle, and as the muscle contracts, especially your gastrocnemius and soleus muscle, they are called as peripheral hearts, because whenever they contract, they push the blood upwards. So this is called as the muscle suction, and in that case they will increase the venous return. Increase in blood volume or decrease in blood volume. If there is an increase in blood volume, the venous return is going to be increased. If there is a decrease in blood volume, the venous return is going to be decreased. Sympathetic discharge to the veins. Now this remains a very important factor. If at all the body wants to shift the blood from the venous system into arterial system, what the body will do? Body will cause severe venoconstriction. Remember, veins are a good reservoir of the blood. So what will happen if there is a venoconstriction? Blood from the venous system will enter into the atria. From the atria it will go into the ventricle, and ultimately the cardiac output is going to be increased. So this will happen. Posture change. As just now as we have seen that if person is lying down and suddenly stands up, because of the gravity the blood is pulled into the venous system, and now the cardiac venous return will decrease, and because of that the cardiac output will decrease. So we have seen that in the heterometric regulation, it is mainly mediated through the Frank-Starling's law. And the Frank-Starling's law is very, very important in case of the heart. What are the important? I can say that without the Frank-Starling's law, the normal functioning of the heart would have been very difficult. What are the things which the Frank-Starling's law take care of? It ensures that the venous return is equal to cardiac output. Imagine what would have happened. If the person is given IV fluid, then the venous return would have increased, and that excess amount of the blood should not now be pumped out. But if there would not have been Frank-Starling's law, now that blood would have accumulated in the heart. So venous return should be equal to that of the cardiac output. Frank-Starling's law also ensures that the cardiac output of right and the left ventricle is equal. Imagine if the right ventricle pumps more blood, then that blood will go into the lungs. From the lungs it will return into the left atrium, and from the left atrium it will go into the left ventricle. That more blood has returned to the left ventricle. So what will happen to the end diastolic volume of the left ventricle? It will increase, and the cardiac output of left ventricle will also increase. So Frank-Starling's law ensures that the cardiac output of right ventricle and the left ventricle are equal. Then Frank-Starling's law also ensures that if the peripheral resistance increases, the stroke volume also increases. As just now as I explained, if the peripheral resistance has increased, the heart will have more difficulty for pumping. So for that contraction, it will pump less amount of the blood. Because of that, what will happen? More blood will accumulate in the heart. And now what will happen? For the next contraction, the end diastolic volume will be more. So the next contraction will be more powerful one, and it can be the cardiac output will come back to the normal value. Up to a limit, Frank-Starling's law compensates cardiac failure. Now, what do you mean by cardiac failure? The heart is not able to maintain the cardiac output, 5 liters per minute. So if the heart is not able to maintain the cardiac output, what will happen? Suppose it pumps out only 4.5 liters per minute. 0.5 liters is still remaining. That 0.5 liter and whatever the venous return is continuous, that is 5 liters per minute. So venous return is continuous. 0.5 liter is we can say that has been left from the previous cardiac output, previous minute. So what will happen? The end diastolic volume will increase, and this itself will increase the force of contraction, and now the cardiac output can be increased. So whatever the loss has been there of the cardiac output, that can be compensated back. So up to a limit, the cardiac failure can be taken care by the Frank-Starling's law. But why I am saying is up to a limit? Because what is Frank-Starling's law? Within physiological limit. If initial length is increased, the force of contraction is increased. But if the heart is in such a case that if there is a severe myocardial infarction, and if the heart is in such a case that even with the increase in the end diastolic volume, it is not able to pump the blood more. So more and more blood will get accumulated. In that case, what will happen? The venous return is constant and the cardiac output is less now. So it will cause more and more accumulation of the blood, enlargement of the heart. That will take place, and excessive stretching of the muscle will cause further weakness of the heart, and now the vicious cycle will start. Excessive stretching, more weakness, further decrease in the cardiac output, venous return is continuous, and excessive stretching again more of the heart. So this is the vicious cycle. So this is why there is a cardiomegaly in patients of the congestive cardiac failure. Cardiac output is regulated in a patients of denervated heart. So the transplanted heart, in which there is no nerve supply to the heart. So in this patient, the Frank-Starling's law remains the only and only mechanism to regulate the cardiac output. So these are some important points related to the Frank-Starling's mechanism. Now we will see for the extrinsic regulation of cardiac output. We will call it as the homometric regulation. So these are again mainly because of the neural effect and certain drugs which can act over the heart. What are the neural effects? Sympathetic stimulation. As you can see here, sympathetic stimulation will mainly act to the beta-1 receptors. They will cause activation of adenylyl cyclase, increase in cyclic AMP, and ultimately it is going to cause increased amount of calcium influx. This increased amount of calcium influx will increase the heart rate, will increase the force of contraction. And because of that, the cardiac output can be increased. Whereas the parasympathetic stimulation will decrease the cardiac output. Xanthines, glucagon, digitalis. We have seen about the digitalis in nerve muscle. How the digitalis is going to increase the force of contraction? Digitalis will partially inhibit the sodium-potassium ATPase pump. Because of that, what will happen? More sodium will remain inside, and less sodium will be available for the sodium-calcium exchange across the cell membrane. So therefore, more calcium will remain inside the cell, and this calcium will increase the force of contraction. So this remains a mechanism of digitalis action, right? Cardiac output will decrease in heart failure. Cardiac output will decrease in severe myocardial infarction, hypoxia, acidosis, and quinidine. With this, we come to the end of this lecture. Thank you.